The moment you hear it.
Okay, it's Darlene.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lana.
Thank you.
Right now, we've just started. We're doing the first initial calls. People who just picked up the phone are now hearing your message, your voice saying, please, just join us on this call. So we're leaving a few messages with some people we couldn't get in touch with. So we're going to get some people in just a moment. Okay, go ahead, Ginger.
Hi, I'm Ginger Goldschnitzer, Director of Government Relations here at NJEA. Welcome to our Teletown Hall meeting with Senate President Steve Sweeney and NJEA President Wendell Steinhauer. Tonight, you will get to hear from Senator Sweeney and ask him questions that are on your mind. So if you have a question at any time during this call, please press 0. That's all you got to do. Press 0. Before Senator Sweeney speaks, I'll be introducing our President, Wendell Steinhauer, in just a minute. But, wow, there's so many of you joining this call. Right now, we've got about 2,000 people. So if you've just joined, I want to introduce myself again. I'm Ginger Goldschnitzer, the Director of Government Relations at NJEA. I want to welcome you to our town hall meeting. Tonight, you're going to get a chance to talk with Senate President Steve Sweeney and NJEA President Wendell Steinhauer. And best of all, you're going to get to ask them the questions that are on your mind. So for all of you who are listening tonight, if you don't want to listen and you want to have a chance to ask a question, all you need to do is press 0. With that, before Senator Sweeney speaks, I'd like to introduce our NJEA President, Wendell Steinhauer, to talk to you a little more about the issues we're going to cover in the call tonight. Wendell?
Thanks, Ginger. Hi, everybody. Tonight's telephone town hall is mostly about giving you an opportunity to ask questions of Senate President Steve Sweeney. We know that many NJEA members are concerned about the state budget and pension payments that have been promised, and you have a right to be. You've been asked to give up a lot in recent years. In exchange, you were promised that the state would hold up its end of the bargain and fund the pensions. You've done your part. But now the governor is threatening to break the law he signed in 2011. I also know that members are feeling the pressure of the new evaluation system, especially with the rushed implementation of the Common Core and the PARCC testing that goes along with it. So we can talk about all of that tonight, but first, let's set the stage. Tomorrow, the legislature will be voting on the budget bill and a whole slew of other important legislation that our members care about. It is a very, very busy time of the year. And still, Senator Sweeney is here tonight to talk with us and take your questions. Now, before I introduce Senator Sweeney, let me fill you in on what's happened in the last 24 hours. You probably know that we've joined other unions in filing a lawsuit over the governor's failure to fund the pensions. We had a small setback this afternoon when the judge decided she couldn't force him to make up this year's billion-dollar shortfall with only a few days left in the fiscal year. But she recognized the fact that we have a contractual right to pension funding, and we are confident that we have the law on our side. Today's ruling was only on a motion for emergent relief. The full lawsuit is still going on. And I'm pleased that legislators like Senator Sweeney are standing up for us in next year's budget. Just last night, the budget committees in both houses of the legislature released a budget bill that includes the legally required payment to the pension fund. They also released bills to raise the revenue necessary for the state to meet this as well as other obligations. And if that wasn't enough, the committees released a bill to require the state to make pension contributions on a quarterly basis so that lawmakers can no longer use our pension fund at the end of the year to balance the state budget. I am certain that none of those things would have happened without Senator Sweeney. So before we get started, I want to thank him personally for his extraordinary efforts on our behalf in this budget cycle. Ginger, is everyone on the call? Are we good to go?
Wendell, we have over 9,600 people on this call right now. I want to welcome them all to this telephone town hall with Steve Sweeney. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone, if you've just joined the call, if you want to ask a question, press 0 at any time, and we'll help you do that. So go ahead, Wendell. You can take your first question if you're ready.
Great. But before we get to the Q&A, let me introduce Senator Sweeney to give you his perspective on the situation in Trenton. Here's Senate President Steve Sweeney.
Hey, Wendell, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk to some of your members this evening. And this is a serious situation. The pension agreement that we made years ago was to ensure that the pension payment became solvent again. And the governor can fund the pension. He just chooses not to. That's why we put a budget together to demonstrate to the judge also that, because we rushed to get it done last night, to have a budget, a balanced budget that meets the obligations and shows how you can fund the pension payment. The pension payment is something that is critically important to me as a chairman of two private pension funds, and we're going to keep fighting to ensure that the retirement system is intact for your members and all the other public employees, to be perfectly honest with you.
Great, Steve. And how about on the evaluation and the park bills? Well, I know. Go ahead.
We're pushing to delay the evaluation, Wendell. Our biggest concern is that a rush to meet a number can cause more damage than what good can come out of it. I think we all agreed that we're willing to work towards a fair evaluation process, but rushing to implement it without us really being prepared is wrong and can have a very negative impact for teachers. And just as an FYI, my son is hopefully going to become a teacher very soon since he's finished his master's in education. So I want to make sure that teachers are treated fairly. They should be. Great.
Matter of fact, hopefully your son gets a job in New Jersey, becomes an NJEA member too.
he could never be anything but a union member.
There you go. So let's get to our first question. I have Pete from Wayne. Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, how are you?
Great, Pete.
Can you hear me? My
Go.
question is, being a special needs teacher, with the park assessment, being implemented next year, is there anything, for lack of a better word, in the works where, the test might be modified in a sense to, so that students, in other words, that the students are taking it at their grade level? A student may be in sixth grade, but he's really on grade level, third grade, but they have to take the same state test as all the other sixth graders. So I'm not sure if you kind of got what I was saying.
Well, Pete, I don't know how we're going to do this, but as a father of a child with special needs, I have a daughter with Down syndrome. I wholeheartedly understand the need to make sure the tests are, based on a curve that's fair. My daughter's 21, but she's not, not at that level. Obviously, she's much younger mentally, and it's unfair to not pay attention to that and try to find a way to make it work.
Great. Thank you, Senator. We have another call from Lois from Edison. Lois, go ahead with your question.
First of all, thank you, Senator, for your support of us retired teachers. My question is a simple one. If and when the governor vetoes the pension bill, do you have enough votes in these houses to override him?
Well, we haven't been able to override them yet, but we have other options. There are constitutional options to get the revenues. Look, it's not a spending problem in the state of New Jersey anymore. We have all sacrificed. Everyone's did their belt tightening. Everyone's contributing. Everyone's participating. It really is a spending issue. I mean, it's a revenue issue now. And we feel the millionaires tax and some of these other taxes are a fair way to get the funding into the state budget to make our obligations. So if he vetoes this, we'll be working with a lot of the unions, obviously, to find a way to ensure, whether it's a ballot initiative or some other way to get this funding in place, because again, it's a matter of fairness. Teachers are paying more for health care now. They just can't say, I don't want to spend it. I don't want to pay it anymore. They're paying it. So, you're doing your part, and it's up to us to do our part.
Great, Senator. Thank you. Let's take one more. We have Barbara from Medford on the line. Barbara, go ahead.
Hi, Senator. I appreciate the work you've been doing for our associations. But I heard the governor today say that he expects the retired people to either contribute to their own insurance or get less retirement benefits and insurance. And I was wondering if you have any comments on that.
Barbara, I don't agree with any of that. You know, again, 3 or 4 years ago, I'm getting old, I'm losing track of time. When the benefit reform and the pension reform went forward, there was a clear understanding. We've done our part now. You're doing your part on the benefit piece. Everyone has stepped up. You stepped up to pay more for your pension. Now it's our turn to do our part. And so I've said this to your leadership. I've told Wendell this before. This is a fairness issue, and the state of New Jersey is not being fair.
Thank you. So remember, if you want to ask Senate President Sweeney a question, just press 0. But right now, we want to know what everyone on the call is thinking about on some key issues. Ginger's going to poll our audience on the call, and we will share the results. Ginger?
Great. Well, thanks, Wendell. Do you know that we're going to be asking this question of 25,000 NJEA members who have joined us tonight? So anyway, here's the question. And you can use your telephone keypad to answer this one. What should lawmakers do to help the state meet its pension obligations? Press 1 if you think that they should reinstate the millionaire's tax. Press 2 to increase corporate business tax surcharges. Press 3 to reduce retirement benefits to employees. Or press 4 to borrow money to make the fund solvent. Once again, let me repeat the question. What should lawmakers do to help the state meet its pension obligations? 1, reinstate the millionaire's tax. 2, increase the corporate business tax surcharge. 3, reduce retirement benefits to employees. Or 4, borrow money to make the fund solvent. And Wendell, you can go ahead and take questions while we wait for those answers.
All right, well, great. I'm really interested in seeing the results of that poll. Right now, we have over 25,000 people on this call. This is unbelievable. So let's go to another question. Alicia in Keensburg, go ahead and ask your question of Senate President Steve Sweeney. Alicia?
Hello, Senator Sweeney. I'm concerned. I'm closer to the going out point than I was in the going in point. And I'm afraid for my pension. I made financial plans for my future and the future of my children, counting on my pension being what it was promised to be. And I made financial decisions counting on the money that I would have coming in from my very hard work and dedication. And now more of it is going, because it's unfortunate to say that Mr. Christie is trying to balance his budget on the back of his state workers. And I need to know and have a clear view of just how much I and my children will not have because of this Christie debacle.
Well, I think we've made it very clear to your leadership that this is something that we are not going to back away from. It's not a fight that we're going to back down from. I tell people this all the time. There's not like a restart button that you can be 21 and start all over again. You know, you're at a point in your life where you've made plans, and our obligation and our responsibility is to ensure that payment. And I can tell you, one way or another, we are going to find a way to fund this. Christie's one individual that is obviously went back on his word. And again, we cannot accept that. I can't personally accept that, because the pension payment is the most important piece for me, because too many people depend on that retirement. And just by the way, pensions do work. There's nothing wrong with the pension system. It's not broken. It's a matter of funding. And for a lot of years, government didn't fund. And it's up to us to catch up. It will get easier when we go further out. But for now, we got some tough decisions to make, but the decisions on our side have been made. We're going to fund it.
Great. And Steve, I think you pointed out more than enough times. We've done as many reforms from members in the pension system. There's just one reform left, that the government fund its obligation, as you have set out in this law. Let's go to Abigail in Brownbrook. Abigail? Abigail, are you there? Okay. Maybe Abigail will call back in. Let's go to Larry in Doylestown. Larry?
Yes, I'm sitting here with a group of retirees who've been retired for 10 years. They're concerned about losing their monthly payments or having their monthly payments reduced. Is there any possibility that that's likely to happen?
No, because Christie's not going to be the governor forever, and we do have avenues to go get more revenue to put into the pension, and there is a commitment from the legislature to ensure that we fund it. As Wendell just said, the reforms were done. The pension does work. It's just a simple calculation. We have to put our piece in. So I know everyone's afraid of this, and look, I would be afraid too when someone that signed a bill promising he would make the pension payment and running around the country saying, look what I did, is now reneging. It's very problematic, but all I can tell you is that this is honestly pretty personal to me because I understand pensions and how important they are.
Great. Let's just take one more, and then we'll see if we have some poll results. Kelly in Hightstown. Kelly?
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. 3 years ago, we signed a contract, and after our contract was signed, our health care benefits increased significantly to the point where I make $400 a month less year over year than I made the year before because we agreed to almost no increase in salary. Yet I'm still responsible for my bills, and I honor that responsibility, even though it's a toll on my family and my 4 children. Why is it that year after year the governor's projections are so miscalculated, and it's decided that they are not responsible to make their contributions to pay their bills? I just cannot fathom that I'm responsible, even though I get significantly less than I've gotten 6 years ago, yet the state is not responsible to us.
Okay, well, look, the reason why the numbers are off so much is pretty much the governor makes them up. Under the Constitution, the governor of the state of New Jersey gets to certify the revenues. We have called it out every year that they're not real, but regardless of what we do, this Constitution gives him enormous powers. But really, the real problem here in New Jersey is that he hasn't created any jobs. New Jersey's 50th in the nation now in employment and number 1 in foreclosures. We weren't 50th in the nation when he came into office. We can fix this. This is very fixable. We need to grow the economy, put people back to work, and honestly, they pay taxes, and that's how we fund these things. No one wanted to go out and raise taxes, I can tell you that. No one was excited about raising taxes. But we have an obligation to meet, and we're going to meet it.
Thanks, Senator. Let's throw it back to Ginger. Ginger, do you have the results on that question?
Absolutely. Well, we've got 27,046 people listening on the call right now, and we polled them and asked, what should lawmakers do to help the state meet its pension obligations? 79% of you said that we should reinstate the millionaire's tax. Sounds like a winner to me. 16% said we should increase the corporate business tax surcharge. 2% said we should reduce retirement benefits to employees, and 3% said we should borrow money to make the fund solvent. So that's our first poll question, Wendell.
Well, Steve, it sounds like that bill, the budget you're working on, is right on track with our membership. They got the top 2 right there in the bill that you are moving through the Senate. Excellent job. Let's go to Rose in Millville. Rose?
Hi, Senator. Thank you for receiving my call. I'm calling in behalf of the ESP of New Jersey. As an ESP working in the school district that I work, I give to my community. I work very hard, but I see that government has no respect for the ESP that works right alongside with the teachers. How are you going to try to push the ESP bill or bring it up again?
Well, we've pushed it and passed it, and if I recall correctly, he vetoed it. Honestly, we get a new governor, and then we get a new governor, and they respect people that work hard. We obviously believe in it because we passed it. Unfortunately, he has a different view of things. Look, I'm very much opposed to privatization. And that's where a lot of these jobs go. People think they can just privatize them. In privatization, the only thing that is saved is, they save by not paying people a decent salary or benefits or a pension. So we believe in that strongly. We worked with your union in the past, and we will continue to work with your union in the future until it becomes a law.
Thank you, Steve. Let's go to another poll question. Ginger, you have a new one for us?
Sure. This one's about the budget. And once again, if you want to ask a question, you can dial 0. And to answer the question I'm about to ask you, all you need to do is use your telephone keypad. And the question is, what's the best way for New Jersey to balance the state budget and avoid future deficits? 1, raise revenue. 2, cut services. 3, borrow money. Or 4, a combination of all 3. Once again, use your telephone keypad. The question is, what's the best way for New Jersey to balance the state budget and avoid future deficits? 1, raise revenue. 2, cut services. 3, borrow money. Or 4, a combination of all 3. We look forward to hearing your answers.
All right. So remember, if you want to ask Senate President Steve Sweeney a question, all you have to do is press 0. So let's go back to the callers, Edith and Toms River. Edith? I think this is probably Edie, I bet.
That's right. Well, good evening, Senator. You and I have done some business in the past, and I'm serving now as a Corzine appointee to the Department of Education's State Board. My concern, of course, is the pension, but you have some really great ideas to fix that. On the other hand, the PARCC testing and the evaluation system that has been proposed is not working. I have talked to so many people in the profession who would love to stay and teach longer, but frankly, what has been imposed upon them is almost too much for them to bear. The department doesn't tell us the real facts about how everything is going. The PARCC testing was not a success, but we didn't hear any negatives from the department. The evaluation system, I'll just give you one example. A teacher here in Toms River, a math teacher, was doing a lesson on whole numbers. And the supervisor wrote up the lesson and through the whole narrative wrote whole as H-O-L-E. What that tells me is our supervisors are not ready yet to engage in a fair evaluation of our teachers. And I think that maybe the department, maybe somebody from the legislature should sit in on the department meetings and just listen to what we're told. I'd be glad to talk with you or anyone who's interested in straightening out the situation and the facts as they should be told. Acting Commissioner Hesby is a really decent guy. I worked with him in the 90s for the professional development stuff that we passed then. Unfortunately, he's under the thumb of the governor. I think that maybe you ought to sit down with Commissioner Hesby and have a really, really good conversation about what he sees as the future. And the department really needs to start telling everybody what the real facts are.
Well, Edie, it's good to talk to you again. I was at a meeting with superintendents that were pleading to do something about the testing, that they're not ready, and they don't want a bad result for anyone. I mean, it's universal when you're dealing with, from management on down, that this is a process that we need to get right. And I have met with Commissioner Hesby, and he is a very good person. But you're correct, he works for the governor. We were glad to see the commissioner come back because he's had a good track record here as being fair and reasonable. But, it's pretty much universal, Edie, that the people that are in charge of these schools, the superintendents, the principals, I met with all of them. There was a big meeting some are, I forget, in the central part of the state where we discussed this, and their concern is, one, is doing it right, and two, being fair. So, there's not a question this is something that we have to focus on.
And Steve, I want to thank you for championing through the bills. I know you're bringing that to the floor tomorrow on the park evaluation, on slowing down and getting it right, among the other things. So certainly doing your part in that. Let's go to Gail in Hamilton. Gail?
Hello, Senator. I would like to know what steps the legislature is willing to take to ensure that public education in public schools is funded and supported, not corporatized through charter schools, as Christie is now doing.
Well, obviously, we're trying to do everything we can to, we've been through tough times. I'd like to say we can meet the funding formula that Governor Corzine had passed that was deemed constitutional. We were on a path, and then the rug got pulled out from underneath us with the recession. But we really do have a funding formula that works. We just have to fund it. So our goal is to get our funding formula back up to where it belongs, because larger class sizes aren't the answer for kids, and neither is privatization, to be honest with you.
Absolutely right. Ginger, that poll, do you have the results?
Yep, we've got the results. Senator Sweeney, you're going to want to hear this one. We asked, what's the best way for New Jersey to balance the state budget and avoid future deficits? 54% of our listeners tonight thought we should raise revenue, so thanks for all the work you're doing on the budget this year. 6% said we should cut services, 7% said we should borrow money, and 34% said that we should look at a combination of all three.
Thanks, Ginger, for those results. Perfect. Let's go back on the call and get some more callers in here. Mark from Freedom. Mark, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes,
go ahead and ask
Senator
your question.
Yes, Senator Sweeney, it's a privilege to speak to you. I was wondering, we all have big bills. I mean, the state has big bills, we have big bills. But I pay my mortgage monthly. I pay my property taxes quarterly. Why is the state pension paid at the end of the fiscal year when they decide if they have money or no money left over for it? Why isn't the pension paid quarterly or in thirds, where part of it is paid right up front and then another part in the middle, and if the next payment can't be made at the end of the fiscal year because of unforeseen circumstances, that money is then rolled over to next year and those payments are made in an installment plan? Can the state possibly do something like that?
Well, we passed the bill out of Budget Committee yesterday, which actually was unanimous. And look, it's even bigger than that. If you're making your quarterly payments, means you have the opportunity to make interest on that money. That changes your numbers going out. The pensions are complicated, but this isn't that complicated. The sooner you get the money in the bank, the sooner it can earn interest. And you're right. In this way, we can guard against this swipe at the end of the year. The thing that's really troubling is the stock market did extremely well the last 2 years, but we missed the opportunity to make money on the contribution when we made the contribution because we made it at the end of the year. So you missed a whole year of making interest on that contribution for that year. So as we look at this, that's why when we met with your leadership, we thought quarterly payments were a very good idea. And the state shouldn't be using your money to balance their checkbook. They should be putting your money right back in the bank because they're taking their contribution out of you and they're holding your money, and it's not right.
That's why that quarterly option that you put into that bill is going to help out a lot, Senators. Thank you so much for that. We have Liz from Bordentown. Liz?
Hi, Senator Sweeney. I just had a question. Are you proposing a bill that would make parents just as responsible for their progress in school as teachers are? In other words,
I know the bill is my partner in the Assembly. It's not mine. We've had a discussion about the fact that teachers are expected to be, honestly, in some districts, parents. And it's hard to take the place of a parent. you're a teacher, you're doing your job. But, we're asking a lot more of teachers. That's why John Bersacelli actually proposed a bill that put parental involvement in the evaluation and looking at the evaluation. And, we've been talking about it, and we're going to talk to your union and see where we go with it.
Great. One more here, Senator. Marilyn from Spotswood. Marilyn?
Good evening, Wendell, and thank you for your time, Senator. My biggest concern is the long-term impact of some of what we're doing with the evaluation and the PARCC testing and other standardized testing. My members and myself are spending volumes more time trying to prove that we're good teachers, and it's time taken away from our students, which is what makes us good teachers. And my biggest concern with all this testing is also it's time away from education, but more and more as the years go by, I hear my students tell me, instead of expressing a desire for knowledge, I hear, just tell me what I have to put on the test, because that's all I need to know. And I'm very scared of what that impact is going to have in the future as these students continue to grow into the workforce.
Well, I happen to agree with you. We're spending too much time teaching tests. And unfortunately, we need to get this nation back on track and focusing on education rather than testing. You can do all the measuring you want. And, in all honesty, we can teach tests. We can do that. But it does take away from education, and that's, again, one of the major concerns we have, is that we're spending too much time teaching, less than time in instruction. And I said it earlier, my son was student teaching and he's substitute teaching, and he said to me, Dad, you guys got to do something about this. This makes no sense at all. So it's not that we're not paying attention to it. We are. We need to work with the commissioner, and I think the commissioner has to be recognized as, too, that we're testing too much. So it's a real discussion that we're going to continue to have with your unions to try to see how we can minimize the testing and maximize the education.
Great. Hey, how about one more poll question? Ginger, you have one over there for us?
We've got another question on the hot topic of evaluation. So remember, you can use your telephone keypad to answer the question. What is the best use for standardized testing in schools? Is it 1, to evaluate teacher effectiveness, 2, to measure student growth, 3, to inform instruction throughout the year, 4, all of the above, or 5, none of the above? Let me read that one more time. What is the best use for standardized testing in schools? 1, to evaluate teacher effectiveness, 2, to measure student growth, 3, to inform instruction throughout the year, 4, all of the above, 5, none of the above.
All right, so while you're dialing in to get that, remember, if you want to ask a question of Senate President Steve Sweeney, just press 0 and we'll get you right on the line. So let's go to Debbie in Marlton. Debbie?
Hi, Senator Sweeney. Thank you so much for your support on pensions and reform. My question is, after 40 years of teaching, I find that I love teaching, but that the evaluations depends on the administration's training in the new evaluations that are coming out to us. And going from 1 to 3, having been evaluated on June 10th, that was, I feel, not a fairness issue. And the second thing is that I feel many elementary schools are not ready for the PARCC and taking the PARCC on computers, and that, just to give you an example, the MAP testing that took place this year in my school, I had 25 kids. They didn't have enough computers working in the computer lab to do my children all at one time and had to stagger it. How can you possibly do the park testing to be fair if they're going to have to stagger classrooms at different times?
Well, I can tell you I heard this same discussion at a superintendent's meeting and an administrator's meeting. They have great concerns. Besides, the cost and where it's being implemented, I think it's North Carolina, where the firm is that they've hired, or one of the firms they've hired is out of North Carolina. And again, there is a great concern by everyone involved. When labor and management are both saying the same thing, you should listen, because normally you can't line both sides up, but they're both lined up squarely on this issue.
All right. Mary in Hillsborough. Are you there, Mary?
Hi, Senator Sweeney. Thank you for taking the time to speak to all of us this evening. My question, I actually have a couple of questions.
Mary, you still there? All right, maybe she'll call back in. But Ginger, how about the last question we have? Do you have the results from that?
Yes, I do have the results, Wendell. So the question was, what is the best use for standardized testing in schools? 1% thought it was a good idea to use it for evaluating teacher effectiveness. But other than that, I think our callers were pretty split. The best use is, what is the best use of standardized testing in schools? 28% said it was a good way of measuring student growth. 25% said it was a good use of it was to inform instruction throughout the year. 21% said all of the above, and 25% said none of the above.
Well, there you go. That's they're all over the place there on that one. Okay. Let's try Pat in Bethlehem. Pat, you're talking to Senate President Steve Sweeney. What's your question, Pat?
Hi there. Do you foresee any major changes or reductions in our health benefits in regard to coverage or cost in the next 5 or 10 years, especially for those of us who are already retired?
I don't see it coming out of the legislature, to be perfectly honestly with you. And I don't know if the governor could do that on his own, but I don't think he can. So, no, I wouldn't foresee that.
So no change in health benefits then, right?
Not on our map. You can negotiate.
So how about let me throw you back to pension for a second. I've heard the governor talk about this hybrid and 401ks and all that he has more pension reform to do there, Steve. What are your ideas on that?
Absolutely not, Wendell. We did the reforms, and I do know pensions. As I said before, I'm the chairman of 2 pension funds. We did what we needed to do. It wasn't fun. It wasn't easy. But we got to a place where we can ensure the pensions were going to be there for everybody. He can talk hybrid all he wants. There's not a chance of me supporting something like that. It's unfortunate. He's trying to redirect the attention from the fact that he made a promise and he broke it. And, you can tell me you didn't know about this, you didn't know about that. There are ways. I've offered to sunset a millionaire's tax. We've offered all kinds of options to try to be reasonable, because these are the wealthy in this state are getting wealthier. In fact, their wealth has doubled over the last decade. But I can tell you the middle class and the working poor have shrunk. The numbers are the numbers, Wendell. So we don't need to do any more reform. We need to do one thing: make our payment.
You're absolutely right, Steve. I don't need. I can speak for the members. I believe we don't need any more reform ideas from the governor. We just need him to do one reform, and that is to pay the bill that he signed into law. As a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So let's bring let's talk to Nancy from Red Bank. Nancy, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Go ahead, Nancy. Okay.
Yes. Senator, I just wanted to know, I know that I've been paying into the pension system for a long time, and it bothers me tremendously to think that if anything were to happen to it, that's my money not paid back to me. It's just everyone's own money, and it's a terrible thing to think that you put all this money in and then you wouldn't get it back. But at the same time, I feel that people that work really hard And if they do make $1 million, if two people work and they're working very hard, they shouldn't be punished by having to pay to fund a pension system that should be there to begin with. I don't think that, other people should have to, be burdened because they work hard and make money, and it's always the people that make the money that are then punished, and their taxes always have to go up. I just don't think that's a fair thing.
Well, first, just so we're clear with what a millionaire's tax is, it's not one penny more up to $1 million. It's above $1 million is what they're taxing. It's honestly, it's people that, look, God bless people that are successful in life. I don't wish anything bad from them, but the reality is they are the ones that have benefited from the state and from this administration. They're the ones that are paying less, to be honest with you. When John Corzine left office, and I said this publicly, the Democrats should have reinstated the millionaire's tax. They didn't do it, and Christie won't do it now, and it caused a problem. We're just saying about them paying what they were paying for the previous 3 or 4 years, and I am more than willing to sunset or even to, as unemployment goes down, reduce the payment. But you can't ask people that work every single day, as you are paying more into your pension, you are paying more for your health care, to say that you're the only ones that are going to sacrifice here. The millionaires are the ones that are paying less, and we actually gave $540 million in corporate tax breaks and tax cuts, let alone some of the other programs that we did. So we've been very fair to people in the state that have been successful. They have to be fair back.
Couldn't have said it better, Senator. Let's go to another poll question. Ginger, what do you have for us?
Well, Wendell, this is our final poll question of the night, and then you'll have an opportunity to take another question or two before we wrap up. And this is probably the most important poll question that we have tonight, because this is the one where we're going to be able to learn what our capacity is to continue to fight these fights. So we've got a lot of big fights coming up, and you've outlined a lot of them tonight, whether it's on teacher evaluation, PARCC, implementation of the Common Core, or if it's about our pension or our benefits. So I'm going to ask the callers right now, would you be willing to volunteer your time to help fight these fights on behalf of our members? Press number one if the answer is yes. Press number 2 if the answer is no. And press number 3 if you'd think about it. Once again, would you be willing to volunteer your time to help fight these fights on behalf of members like you? 1 is yes, 2 is no, and 3 is you'll think about it.
Thanks, Ginger. And I want to remind the callers that if you want to ask Senate President Steve Sweeney a question, just press 0 and we'll put you on the line. So, Senator, ready for a couple more?
Yes, I am.
All right, here we go. Sarah from Willingboro. Sarah, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Senator,
go ahead and ask
how
your
are you?
question.
Senator, how are you tonight?
Very good, thank you.
Great. I'm on my local school board, and I'm also a public school teacher, so I see it from both sides. There are many mandates from the state, but there is little to no funding to support those mandates. Evaluations have tripled, but in most districts, there is not adequate funding to hire additional administrators to help with those evaluations. Also, for the PARCC testing that's mandated by the state, a lot of districts do not have the needed technology to carry through the PARCC testing. Is there any bill before the Senate, or will there be a bill before the Senate that will give additional funding to districts who might be short as it relates to the needed funding for mandates from the state?
Well, I couldn't have said it better, and God bless you for serving on the school board. I served on a school board for 1 year, and it was one of the most difficult jobs. I've been involved in a lot of tough jobs, one of the most difficult ones. But look, I've met with your union and your union leadership, and we've spoken about, and I've spoken to superintendents also about looking at mandates that have nothing to do with improving education, but are there that you have to comply with that actually cost money. And what we would like to do is start to find things that are wasteful as far as resources that don't improve anything. And I'm sure there's probably more than a few things that we require school districts to do that really doesn't benefit education. So do I see any funding coming forward right now? We're not funding our school funding formula. What you brought up is another issue that the superintendent's brought up, that we're putting this burden on this testing without any resources. So again, there's things I think we can do and be productive, and working with the new commissioner on mandates and requirements that really don't have anything to do with education, but somebody thought it was a good idea at one time and said, how about if you think we do this? And it sounds like a good idea, but it really doesn't benefit education.
All right. How about Linda from ATCO? Linda.
Good evening, and thank you for taking my call. I'm questioning the tier system, its purpose, and I'm wondering how the tier system will affect the pension system as a whole in the future. For example, who will fund Tier 1 if all the members of Tier 1 are now retired and no longer contributing to the fund? And in addition to that, how will the other tiers be funded?
Are you talking about the pension? Or health care? Because we tiered the health care.
Pension fund.
Okay,
pension
well,
fund.
The pension fund's going to get funded because we're going to make our obligations. We have to fund it, and as long as everyone's paying into it. Look, the governor's talking about a hybrid system. We are not. We're talking about funding a pension system and building it back up. I've seen actuarial reports, which are the people that basically project out where your pensions are and what your pension costs are. Yet the cost is very steep right now for one reason. We haven't paid in probably 15 years. Right? There was about a 15-year period where there wasn't any payments. 25 years from now, the pension payment's $1 billion. It's very manageable. The problem is you just can't ignore it. You have to pay your bill, and that's what we're fighting, and that's what we're going to. One way or another, we're going to find a way to get funding into this. It's a revenue issue, not a spending issue.
All right, great, Senator. Ginger, that last polling question, how did we do on that one?
Well, Wendell, we asked if people on the call would be willing to volunteer to help us fight the fights. And 52% said yes, 5 said no, and 42% said maybe.
Wow. All right, well, I'm going to ask Senate President Steve Sweeney if he has any final remarks before we wrap up here. I just want to remind folks that if you called in and we didn't get to your question, just leave a message and we will still be able to get them to the senator for further action. So, Steve, you have the last word here.
Wendell, listen, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your membership, and actually the way we've been working together to ensure that we try to fix some of these things. I truly understand the concern. All I can tell you is the pension system is not broke. It's not overburdened. The governor's rhetoric is just what it is rhetoric. We can fix this, and we will fix it. I'm disappointed that we have to fight this again because we already did this fight once. But this is a fight that's worth fighting, and we will find a way to get this worked out so that we're funding the pension. That's what the purpose of getting a budget in actually today, because there was a court case today, and it's not as bad as it reads. There's a lot of positive in some of the language that I read. So we wanted to present a budget that is balanced, that funds all of our obligations, and a pension is an obligation. So, Wendell, I really do appreciate the opportunity to work with you and Ginger and stay on top of issues that really have an impact, including the testing issues that we have right now.
Now, you mentioned that the emergent relief suit decision today, and I talked about it earlier on, but we're going to continue through the lawsuit on that, in for the second year. And let me just maybe put you on the spot a little bit here, Senator. Would you be willing to support our lawsuits?
Wendell, I've been publicly saying I hope you win it. Listen, I can't say any more than that. I've been in the press saying, and on TV, saying, I hope you win because you should. We made an agreement. He got health care reform. We were supposed to get pension reform. So, Wendell, I'm your biggest cheerleader on this thing for one reason. We showed him how to fund a pension. We showed him how to do it, and we can do it. It's just a willingness of somebody not wanting to. So we would hope that the courts would recognize that we showed a pathway to get the revenues to make this work. You know, it's just like when we make decisions at home. Sometimes you just don't feel like doing something, but you know you have to. Like a credit card bill isn't exciting to pay, but eventually if you don't pay, you don't have credit. So we have responsibilities and we have to make them.
Excellent, excellent. So I want to thank everyone that called in on this Teletown Hall. I think it was great. The participation was up to 27,000 at one point. Unbelievable. I think that's a world's record in NJEA Teletown Hall. And I'm going to throw it back to Ginger for closing remarks. Ginger?
Thanks, Wendell. Thanks, Senator Sweeney. You've been listening to a Teletown Hall meeting with NJEA President Wendell Steinhauer and Senate President Steve Sweeney. We want to thank you for joining us tonight. Remember to keep up to date on all these battles. Always check in at www.njea.org. Thanks for joining us.